Here's another picture of the property looking to the west here, and you can see this was taken about April of 2007. Again, the trees were still there, present in the property. And then this is this spring. So now all the trees are gone. This is taken in a similar area as the previous photo, so we can look back and see the difference in grass growth that year. That was a warmer spring. This year was we had a cool spring, so our grasses were quite a bit more delayed coming out. But you'll see the trees are gone there. The way they removed the trees, in some ways they clipped them with a big hydraulic clipping machine and then ground them off in a tub grinder and hauled off the mulch. In other spots on the property, they ground up the trees using a gyro track machine, which is really just a big spinning blade on the front of a tractor that grinds them up where they sit. So as you look at these pictures, you'll see some issues, I hope, that jump out to you. And this one right here is from the oil road on the property to the far east boundary of the property looking west. And what we see is a lot of bare ground, and that's going to create a problem. And the reason we have bare ground here is because we are close to the water tank. Let me go back a few slides here. If I can get back to my map. So this picture was taken from right about here. And we're pretty darn close to the water. And what the animals tend to do is there's a gate right here. They go to water and they start working their way out. And when they got out here, they'd start grazing. And then they'd graze pretty intensively in these areas here and work their way out. And then when they got their bellies full, well, they'd come back to water. So we had some areas that were grazed pretty intensively. And as a result of that, created some bare ground. But then you'll notice out about here, that's about as far as the animals got before they were ready to go back to water. So further out to the west here, we have some areas of the property that hardly ever got grazed or really remained undergrazed. So going back to our picture here, you'll notice these taller grasses behind there. And those are grasses that really the animals did not graze. And then when they came back to them, they were taller, more mature, not very desirable. So they just left those alone, going on out to graze these areas here. So one of the goals of the property is to start reducing these areas of bare ground.
Tell us, why are those areas of bare ground a big problem other than our topsoil blowing away and our ever-present winds?
Yeah, well, bare ground creates an opportunity for weeds. And nobody really likes having much weeds on their property. But in this area now, as it's August this time of year, we have a very thick stand of kochia weed, foxtail barley, which is an undesirable grass, an annual grass. If you were in an area that had cheatgrass, the cheatgrass would fill into these bare ground spots. So really, the more bare ground you have, the more weed problems you're going to have. And the more your grasses can be aggressive and be healthy, the less weed problems you're going to have. So we've also got some Canadian thistle out here, which is a big problem, and it's also taking advantage of this bare ground. All right, so here's another closer picture here, just showing these taller, mature plants that are ungrazed, and right in between them, the bare ground areas that have seen too much grazing pressure. So that's one of the things we really want to deal with. Now, this is the same site, just looking back to the south a little bit. You can see our home sits right here and amongst all these trees. This is a three-sided shed on the property, and that's where the livestock water is located. So everything comes from right there, comes over here, down throughout a gate, and grazes right out this way. So that's kind of what we have to deal with. So again, the first thing we did is taken over the property here in July. I've got 2 horses, and now we've got 4 bulls grazing on us. We wanted to relieve grazing pressure from these areas that I just showed you that are overgrazed and that have a lot of this bare ground. So the first thing we needed to do was establish a water tank away from this part here that's always been where the animals watered. So we have a neighbor that lives right up here, just barely off the property line, and they were willing to run a garden hose out for me. And then I put a temporary water tank right over here in this corner. And so now we've got water out here, temporarily anyway. And then along with that, I also ran a temporary electric fence. And the yellow line here shows the first one I ran for the 2 horses, which just created about a 10-yard wide lane there on the west end of the property. And then when the 4 bulls came along, well, that just wasn't enough room. So we moved that fence to the east just a little bit, and where the red line is there, now that's the temporary electric fence. So let me show you what that ground looks like. Remember, this line, about from this line right here to the east is where a lot of the grazing occurred, and that's where the bare ground is. And now we're going to look at what the grass looks like to the west of that line, and you'll see how much different it is. So here we are on the west end of the property. This is the property line right here where that fence is. Here's the neighbor that I was pointing out. This is where we've established our temporary water tank. And then here was the original fence that was put in that created the lane for the horses. So quite a difference in the amount of vegetation that's present over here on the west side. This is tall wheatgrass primarily. And you'll see why they call it tall wheatgrass from this picture. That's a full-size pickup there. And the grass is pretty well thick up halfway on the pickup. If you walk out through it, it's over your shoulders in a lot of places. And certainly always up to your waist in areas. So we had a nice wet spring, and that helped out with that. But thick grass, grass that becomes undesirable to grazing animals once it grows up very tall. So you got to get, if you're going to want it grazed later in the year, you're going to have to put them on there fairly in high numbers or in small areas. So that's what we have to work with. This is the property, and we hope you enjoy watching us document the things that we do as we go through the changes that we're going to make on this property. We've got a few different ways that we're going to get this information out. One of them is going to be through this YouTube website where we're going to post videos of things. Another is a Facebook page that's going to serve needs of the property. And all these are going to be housed on the team's website. And that website is barnyardsandbackyards.com.
You already have some videos up, don't you, Dallas, talking about various things like grazing management and how to install electric fence, that kind of thing.
I do, yeah. I've got a couple videos that we're getting out there. One of them was when we put in a tire tank to supplement the storage supply for this temporary tank. We installed a tractor tire as a water tank, so we took a video out of how to do that. Also got one just talking about the basics of grazing management, and then just a few videos from around the property. And then on the Facebook site, we have a lot of photographs and written out things documenting like when the bulls came in and some of the challenges we had there. So, yeah.
So on this project, we're going to be covering this property, as I mentioned before. We're also going to be later in the year and next year talking about a Casper property, and we're going to be covering a wide variety of issues, including grazing, as we talked about here, weed control, landscaping, the wind breaks, all sorts of different topics. So the purpose of the project is to provide practical information to landowners about these issues. And this is one example of how we do that.
That's right. And we hope you also check out the magazine that the team produces. The magazine is called Barnyards and Backyards, and it's a quarterly magazine that comes out, and you can check out the website there for information on that too.
Yes, and we also sponsor workshops across the state. You can find more information about those workshops in the magazine at the website. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Dallas.
All right. Thanks, Jenny.